Hi you guys, my name is Sharita. Oh, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a rant. I am full of emotions and I decided to do this video because I was full of emotions. At first I was like, I'm not gonna do this video, I'm not gonna record. I'm not gonna record because I don't want my emotions to spill out, but like at this point, it needs to be emotion, it needs to be emotion based. I'm sorry. So, and you guys are gonna watch me put on my makeup while I rant. So if you're interested in this video, go ahead and keep watching before I get started. Make sure you click subscribe for new content whenever I post. And also do not forget to click the notification bell so that you are notified every single time that I post a video. So let's get started. All right, so here's the thing. The thing is we saw what happened at the Capitol yesterday. And a lot of people are confused on why certain people are upset. And okay, I have no notes. Usually when I record, I have notes, but again, this is like just a rant and emotionally based video. So here's the thing. I'm watching this happen in real time. I'm watching these Trump supporters basically take over the Capitol. And all I could think to myself was, if this were another organization, specifically Black Lives Matter, they would have been shot. And the argument that people are saying is, oh, like, you were okay with Black Lives Matter when they did this, that, and the other, but you're not okay with how Trump supporters are acting. And that's not what the argument is. The argument is how the cops have responded to both situations. By the way, I'm channeling my inner Amanda BB and I've got on my bonnet and I'm doing my makeup. So the difference is how the cops responded to the two different situations. I do not necessarily agree or disagree with how people protest. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee, which was very peaceful, people got upset. Certain people got upset. When Black Lives Matter peacefully protested, people got upset and they're like, oh, it's the looters and the rioters and blah, blah, blah. And you know, and people are like, oh, Trump supporters or Republicans would never do that. And here's the thing. I think there's a difference between Trump supporters and Republicans. First of all, I think it's stupid to label yourself as anything really, to be completely honest, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But when Republicans are actively, or Trump supporters, I'm sorry, are you know, saying like, oh, we would never act this way, this, that, and the other, and Black Lives Matter, people are saying the same thing when, you know, the looting and rioting started, and Black Lives Matter people were saying like, that's not Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is an organization based off of peace, and Black Lives Matter was still met with violence, right? Black Lives Matter was met with violence, and you can't tell me otherwise. And if you do, then like, you suck. Black Lives Matter, when they were peacefully protesting, and this is what I mean by peacefully protesting, they had signs and they were just walking down the street. That's all they were doing. But then the cops showed up in riot gear. You know, they showed up with, you know, like their helmets, and they showed up with rubber bullets, and you know, they had on, you know, body armor and this, that, and the other. When they found out, because like, you can't tell me that they didn't know that Trump supporters were going to protest. You can't tell me they didn't know. I know somebody who literally flew from California to Washington, D.C. to fight whatever they're fighting for, right? So you can't tell me that people didn't know that this was going to happen. Trump supporters were met with, please don't. Just, there were no rubber bullets. And And you can't, if you watch the difference, Black Lives protesters, Black Lives Matter protesters, they didn't have weapons. Trump supporters showed up with flags, and you know, they had their, you know, whatever they use at the end of their flags to break through barriers to get to the Capitol. When Black Lives Matter, I mean, the picture just, it might be the thumbnail, I don't know, but how they prepared for the two different people is telling. And a lot of people will be like, oh, but they were peaceful when they walked into the Capitol. Black Lives Matter protesters were just as peaceful. But when you're met with violence, what are you gonna do? Like, if somebody walks up to you, and I don't care if it's a cop, I don't care who it is, if somebody punches you in the face, what do you do? You just stand there and take it? Even though you weren't doing anything wrong, but like exercising your right to the Constitution. And that's, I hate where people are like, oh, well, there's a difference between like, how, no, the difference is how the cops responded. And I'm not saying either was right or wrong. And I'm not saying like, oh, if you want to shoot black people, then you need to shoot everybody. But the difference is like, when we talk about police brutality, we're saying that like they're acting, the cops are acting this way for no reason. And we saw yesterday on live TV that the cops know how to restrain themselves. They know how to restrain themselves. And again, it's not about like, oh, if you're gonna shoot us, shoot them. It's about, if you don't shoot them, don't shoot us. And that right there is racism at its finest. If you perceive black people or Black Lives Matter as a threat, because like, I'm not saying that all people who believe in Black Lives Matter are black, or all Trump supporters are white, but the difference was white people were storming the Capitol and the cops were letting them through. Like, it literally, like, they literally just went like, all right, come on in, come on, come on, come on in. Had it been Black Lives Matter, because whether you want to believe it or not, black people are perceived as a threat. They look at black people and they're like, oh, that person's dangerous. A person with a cardboard sign wearing flip-flops and a dress, that's dangerous. But you got these white people out here, they're in combat boots, they've got their camouflage, they've got everything on, like they're ready to fight. Like they're ready to fight. But somehow black people are perceived as a threat. And then you have people that are like, these are not Trump supporters. This is not how Trumpsters act. Actually, if you go to any Trump rally, this is exactly how they act. And when Black Lives Matter was saying, you guys, this, like, the looting and the rioting, those were not Black Lives Matter protesters. Those were people who were taking advantage, and they were trying to make Black Lives Matter seem like they were like they're worse than they are. Now that Trumpsters are acting like that, they're like, oh, that was Antifa and that was Black Lives Matter people acting. And then you have to also look at why people are protesting. So Black Lives Matter would protest because the cops wrongfully killed somebody. And I don't care if George Floyd, I don't care what he did before. If the justice system did what they were supposed to do, and he was the criminal that people said he was, he would have been locked up. Or if he was locked up, like, he served his time. If he was out, he served his time. Law and order, right? But you guys, people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. They're like, well, he was a criminal and he deserved to die. Okay, so you guys are all about, oh, people deserve second chances. Who deserves second chances? Okay, so future editing Sharita here. There's my refrigerator filled with people that I love and like my sons, whatever. Anyways, what I meant is like people will, oh God, I always do this because I'm used to have my glasses on, but anyways, people will like excuse people who are like, is it called like affluent or affluence, whatever it's called, but like a white kid who grew up being like rich and famous and whatever can like drive drunk and kill 10 people, and people like, well, he didn't like really understand like his circumstances. But like a 10-year-old black kid will steal 30-cent cup of noodles because he wants to feed his starving family, and they're like, lock him up. Who? Because you can't tell me, like when people bring up the shit that Trump has done, oh, that was in the past, that's not who he is. He literally proved who he is. Like, that man is 177 years old, and you're trying to tell me that he's changed from who he was on The Apprentice when he was 100 years old. No, like, old people in general are set in their ways, but like you wanted to, oh, people change, people aren't real, the locker room talk, oh, people always say shit behind closed doors. That's your problem. The problem is you want to act one way to the public, but behind closed doors, this is who you really are. I don't want no fake people. I want to know who the fuck you are. And that's the difference. So yeah, so like you can't sit there and tell me like, oh, this is not how Trumpsters act. This is not how Republicans act. Did you guys forget like when the right or whoever they were back in the day? Because a lot of people will be like, oh, black people always vote Democrat. No, because the Republican Party was for black people before. And then, people will be like, oh, don't make it about race. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but white people made it about race long before black people did. So that y'all need to fix that shit, not black people. So anyways, it's like, it's funny how like people can understand when it's one side but not the other. And to be clear, like I said before, people are not saying like, because you guys shoot us, shoot them, but we see the restraint. And a lot of people, again, are like, oh, so you understand when Black Lives Matter do it, it's okay to destroy buildings and da-da-da-da-da. That, nobody said that. Nobody's sitting here saying like, yeah, it's okay that people are destroying buildings, but number one, like, that's the least of people's worries. Like, Black lives are literally being taken. Literally being taken. And when we try to say like the cops shouldn't be killing, and people go, oh, well, they should, don't resist, don't this, don't that. And then we see white people doing the exact same shit, and they're not getting shot, means that these cops they see black people as a threat. They think black people are inherently dangerous. Black people would have never gotten into Capitol. Never. And like I said, people are like, oh, well, those were not Republicans. Then who the f were they? Because here's the thing. There's a lot of people who don't believe in this two-party system, and we're trying to like get out of that two-party system, like, it's the bad people that are putting us against each other, and while we're sitting here and we're trying to be like, listen, like, Republicans, like, what you're doing ain't it. Like, you supporting this Trump man ain't it. Because like, Trump is a narcissistic asshole, and he's proven that time after time. Like, he literally just like called out Mike Pence because Trump didn't get his way. Like, this is not a temper tantrum. And that's the other thing. People, you know, were like, oh, Black Lives Matter, like they're rioting because they didn't get their way. First of all, do y'all remember when Trump got into office and y'all were like, that's your president, get over it, get over it, get over it. And we sat there and we endured 4 years of this man. Did we ever once storm the Capitol because he was president? No. But because he lost, now people are like, oh my God, like there's no way. And you guys, people are like, did you see how many people like showed up for the Trump rallies? There's no way that like Joe Biden, like, there's no way that Joe Biden got more votes, because like, did you see how many people showed up to Trump rallies? And it's like, y'all are grown people talking about literal numbers of people showing up at a rally where, one, people, Democrats, people on the left, people who have common sense are taking this panoramic seriously. Like, this Pandora's box is serious and people are taking it serious. So no, people are not going to show up at rallies, and if they do, they're gonna wear a mask. So that's number one. So you can't compare people who showed up to people like, oh, look at all these people that showed up to the Trump rally, and you expect to believe that all these people voted? Absolutely. But then also, here's the other thing. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? All people are saying is like, oh, like Trump had more people at his rally, so obviously more people voted. I didn't know that like 4-year-olds could vote, because people were definitely taking their kids. People were definitely taking their 15, 16-year-olds. Not everybody there voted, and not everybody who didn't show up to Biden's rally didn't vote. Like, people are voting. People understand. People are now understanding like the powers in the vote. And here's the thing. So Joe Biden, obviously is president. And a lot of people are like, how come I don't see people like wearing Joe Biden merch and this, that, and the other? And it's like, because we don't idolize him. Like, that's weird. That's weird. It's weird to idolize a president to the point where you're like wearing, like, that becomes your personality trait. Like, what we understand is like, for these 4 years didn't do us justice. It did not do us justice. And so everybody was like, you know what? Anything to get Trump out. That's literally what it boiled down to. It boiled down to, we're just trying to get Trump out. We don't think Joe Biden is going to be any better, but like, at least can we try? Like, we gave Trump a chance, and look at him. Look at him. There's no way, like, I'm sorry, at this point, if you don't believe white privilege is a thing, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but like, again, this is a rant and I'm going off of emotions, and I have ADHD. Like, at this point, if you don't believe that white privilege is real, like, you deserve to get your ass beat, because there's no way that you can see two different people who are marching for this, whatever. Black Lives Matter are protesting because, you know, cops are shooting black people for no reason. And they're marching. They weren't at the, I'm talking about the shit that happened during the summer. They weren't at the Capitol. They were just walking down the street, right? But then you have Trump supporters who, you know, think that the voting was rigged, and they're marching for what they believe in. And they're not just marching down the street. They're going to the Capitol, and not a single person's getting shot. They're not even being met with the same violence that Black Lives Matter protesters were being met with. How can you not say that white privilege is not a thing? Explain that to me. Please explain that to me. And I'll give you another situation. So there was a man by the name of Jonathan Price. He was a black man, but he was a black Republican. I mean, I guess he lived in a small white town, and I say white town because majority of the people that lived in his town were white. He lived in a small white town, and he believed in Blue Lives Matter. He was shot and killed by the cops because he was black. He was trying to he was just like a regular person, and I guess a man was beating up his girlfriend. He tried to break it up. The cop showed up and shot him and killed him. And this was right after he like posted on his Facebook and was like, I'm black and the police don't, you know, they don't target me, woo woo wah. And the cop that shot him was like a new person and didn't know him. He shot him because he was black and perceived him as a threat. And then all of a sudden, like, his little white friends were like, his life mattered. So did all the other black people who were shot for no reason. And because Jonathan was a Republican or whatever he identified as, and he had white friends, all of his white friends were like, he didn't deserve this. But then like 5 days ago, you were saying that like George Floyd deserved to die. Like, I'm trying to understand like the difference, because there is no difference. And a lot of people, we need to teach empathy, because a lot of people want to be like, oh, well, I didn't like personally know him, so like I don't care. But then once you know that person personally, then all of a sudden you care. And that's sickening to me. That is sickening. Like, what? Like, that was a person. Like, I wish y'all cared about black people the same way y'all care about animals. You can see an animal, you can see a deer on the side of the road, and you're like, oh my God, that deer did not deserve to get hit by that car. How do you know that deer was not evil? You don't know. You don't know. But y'all care about animals' lives more than you care about black lives. What else was I gonna say? Basically what I'm trying to say is, if you still support Trump, you're a piece of shit, and I don't care. And if you don't see that this two-party system doesn't work, you're a piece of shit. If you don't understand that, like, police brutality is a thing. Oh, that was what I was gonna say. It's funny how people are like, Blue Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, but the same people were literally fighting the cops. They were in the Capitol fighting cops, punching them. Ne'er a weapon was drawn. Now here's the thing. People will be like, well, yeah, like a woman died. One woman died. Had it been the other way around, more people would have died. Like, I don't know. And people would be like, well, maybe black people need to be more aggressive like these white people were. So you're saying that more black people should get killed. And like, I'm still stuck on this whole, like, that's not how Republicans act. How is that not how Republicans act? And when I'm talking about Republicans, it ain't got nothing to do with race, religion, nothing. And again, sorry, I shouldn't say Republicans. I'm talking about people who support Trump. They're two completely different people. People who support Trump, and then Republicans, you know? And people who support Trump have lost their minds. And I think that's why labeling is dangerous, because there's a spectrum. You know, there's a spectrum. There's people who voted for Trump who I can respect, and a lot of people are like black and white, and they're like, nope. Like, if you voted for Trump, I can't respect you by any means. But some people voted for Trump because they vote Republican, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they support Trump. And then there's also Republicans who like see Trump for who he is and won't vote for him. And again, that's why labeling is so detrimental. You have people who like, you know, like people who identify as like We can talk about gender, we can talk about sexuality, we can talk about everything that's a social construct. Labeling yourself, not really a good thing, because then people are gonna see you as that something. You know what I mean? So yes, but I just wanna say that like there's a difference between Trump supporters and Republicans. There's a difference, and Trump supporters can kiss my ass. If you don't see the difference between how the cops treat black people and how the cops treated Trump supporters, then there's literally something wrong. Like you can get your eyes checked, you can, but there's a difference. And then like it's so frustrating. And I guess what I saw is like, one of the things that I saw on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, wherever I saw it, was we're not asking the cops to shoot. I know I said this earlier. We're not asking the cops to shoot these people. I mean, of course, there are some people that are like, shoot them. And if they get shot, they get shot. But there's a difference between like treat everybody the same. Like if the cops are just gonna shoot everybody, shoot everybody. And I'm not saying it's right, because I don't agree with police brutality. However, if you're shooting niggas, you need to be shooting these white people too. And you can't convince me otherwise. You cannot convince me otherwise, because these people that are being met with violence, they're going to react with violence. You see how, for the most part, the cops were reacting not with violence, and nary violence was to be found. Well, actually, those terrorists were violent. They were very violent. And I'm not saying that like all of the Trump supporters were, you know, acting that way, but the people who were acting that way were Trump supporters. And you can't convince me otherwise. You cannot convince me otherwise. I would like to talk to somebody who's like, I would like to talk to somebody who has an opposing opinion. That's what I would like to do. Because at this point, this is so pretty. Because at this point, it's like, how do you not see the difference? And we don't know these people. Like, we don't know all the people who are there, but you also can't tell me that Trump was not the one. Like, Trump didn't do anything to stop it. He did nothing to stop these people. He did absolutely nothing. He was like, this is what he wanted. He wanted this to happen. He wanted this to happen. He was basically like, this is great. And y'all don't believe this, but the shit happened. I'll never forget when he was on Oprah and he was like, if I were to ever run for office, I would run Republican, because Republicans are stupid and they'll listen to everything that I say. It's gotten to the point where like a lot of people be like, that never happened, like you can't prove it. There's so many people who remember that. I remember it vividly. And that, like, it gets taken off the air. Like, people will upload it to like, oh no, people will upload it to like their YouTube, their Instagram, their whatever, and it gets taken down immediately. And I'm not saying this because like, oh, I did it, but I remember that. I remember that vividly. So here's the thing. When people show you who they are, believe them. Trump showed you guys who he was before he ran, while he was running, during his running, and like, I don't know. I don't understand why people are still like, oh, it was like, you were robbed, blah, blah, blah. That's like, okay, let's take YouTube, for example. So, let's take, I guess, PewDiePie, for example. PewDiePie has over 100 million subscribers. But like 100 million people don't watch his videos all the time. So based off of that, you expect me to believe that somebody who only gets 2 million views a video has 100 million subscribers? That's how you guys sound when you say, oh my God, like only 100 people showed up to Joe Biden's whatever, and I'm expected to believe that 80 something million people voted for him? Yes. Like, I could have watched one of PewDiePie's videos and subscribed based off that video, but never watched another one of his videos. I'm convinced people are saying stuff just to say it at this point, because it don't make no sense. It don't make nobody's type of sense. So to wrap it up, this is basically what I want to say. One, white privilege is a thing, prove me wrong. And two, police know how to restrain themselves, so they shouldn't be killing people any longer. Or if you're killing black people, you need to be killing everybody. And there's a difference between Trump supporters and Republicans. There's a difference between Black Lives Matter protesters and liberals. Like, if you guys think that Antifa, which I'm not even 100% sure what that means, but like if you think Antifa is responsible for Trump, whatever they did with, you know, in the Capitol, but like you can't see that Antifa, whatever that means, is part of Black Lives, you know, has gone in and destructed Black Lives Matter. Like, at this point, you're just stupid, and I want to fight you. All right, so that's my rant for today. I'm actually going to, do I have time? Okay, so I'm gonna finish like my lashes and my lips, and then I'll come back because maybe some of you guys want to see like how pretty I can be. All right, you guys, here's my final look. I guess I'm gonna be like that person and be like, everything that I use on my face, I'll leave in the description below. But also, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a rant video and my thoughts were all over the place, but that's just what came to my head. It was a rant video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you give it a big thumbs up. That helps me out a lot. And also, do not forget to link up with me on my social media, especially Twitter. All of that information will be down below in my description box. And until the next time, I'll see you guys later. Bye. I lost another nail.